Hello, welcome. We had Matt Falutico from Facebook. And to start things off, Matt, tell me about yourself.
As you already said, I'm an iOS engineer at Facebook. I've been there for just about a year now. I work on this product called Local. Local is its own app. It's not part of the main Facebook app. It's a separate thing. No Facebook design. Well, there is Facebook design. It's just like we have our own set of design. It's a really different experience working for most of the Facebook apps. And the entire purpose of it is to find places and events wherever you are, whether it's traveling or your home city. Basically helps you find what you want to do next in the real world.
No, really cool, really cool. So why Facebook? How'd you get into Facebook?
I was an iOS engineer at this place called Zero, and to get to the next level, I wanted to like go to a place where iOS was like big, and Facebook makes the most complex mobile app in the store. You may have some harsh opinions on whether it's a good app or not, but the complexity of what is inside that is unlike anything else. That's why it's so massive. That's why it may not be as performant as something like Twitter. Like it's complex. So I wanted to taste of that, see what it was like.
Is Events has its own app, doesn't it?
So it's inside Facebook as well,
Okay,
but it's a completely different experience as its own app.
nice, nice. No, awesome, awesome. So why Facebook for you personally?
I thought they were going to take me to that next level of being an iOS engineer.
Nice, nice. So if a lot of people don't know, Zero is actually a big company within itself. If I remember correctly, it's kind of like an accounting tool. Is that
Yeah,
the case?
it's an accounting tool. My team primarily worked on the expense version of the product, which is similar to Concur. You just scan a picture of your receipt, and then it's sent off to the cloud, and then it comes back down all filled out, and you just say, this looks good, send it to my manager.
So how did you transition from Zero to Facebook? Clearly there was a need, a want there, but like logistically, how did that work out for you?
I basically set it up that I wasn't quite ready to leave Zero, but if a handful of these companies happened to reach out, I would take them up on the offer. And I got an email from Facebook and decided like go through with it. It was a pretty long interview process. There was a lot of stuff I needed to finish up at Zero, but called an iOS recruiter and we talked about some iOS basics, and she said, let's move you onto a phone screen. Did well enough on the phone screen to go to the on-campus interview, and then spent an entire day in their Menlo Park campus, and about a month later received an offer.
So did you have a friend at Zero? Did you have a friend at or a friend at Facebook that helped you?
I knew people at Facebook, but from what I understand, none of them
They
said,
just kind of picked you up online.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. I mean, you're in the Bay Area, right? So I mean, I guess it was fitting. Cool,
Mm-hmm.
real cool, real cool. But before that, I think the biggest story I like about you is that you didn't come from a traditional where like everyone's goal. So we're college students, right? Everyone's goal is to graduate and then go on to one of the tops. Where you kind of took a different approach. You did an internship here in Columbus. You did an internship out in the Bay Area with the J.P. Morgan. Then you transferred over to Zero, and then you went from Zero to Facebook. And it sounded like, if I'm not mistaken, you kind of picked you kind of like critiqued your craft within iOS development through that whole journey, correct?
Let's go with that. Yeah. I've been doing iOS for a while and got more and more specific, more and more specialized.
So you think that was your secret sauce then, that you were kind of like an expert in that specific area? That was your language then?
I think calling me an expert is very generous. I appreciate it. I wouldn't call myself an expert. Yeah, you get to the point where it's still making a product. So
Okay.
your expertise can be in iOS development, but the concepts in Android really aren't that different. And you shouldn't be able to call yourself a senior iOS engineer if you can't talk to the senior Android engineer and basically implement the same exact thing. So yeah, I just used iOS as a specialty with this goal of the Android guy sits right next to me, and I should be able to understand everything he's doing, even if I haven't used Java since my freshman year.
No, I like that. No, that's a good scenario. As for the college students, what do you recommend students should do to kind of separate themselves between other developers, in your opinion?
Just make things. I sat in a bad presentation once, and the presenter just kept saying So the first app I made was just a big button, and you would tally how many times someone said and then you said the presentation's over, and it would draft an email that said, hey, I just wanted you to know in your however long the presentation was, presentation, you said 324 times, and you could send them that email. And like, that's stupid. That's really dumb.
Yeah.
No one should have downloaded that. And I think only like 300 people did, and that's the 300 people that download every single new iOS app and my dad.
Yeah.
So like, I just made that, open sourced it, but it's a start.
So it sounds like, well, so what's the underlying philosophy of the start, of you actually building something, even though it's stupid? Like, what's the real purpose of it, in your opinion?
I mean, I learned something from it.
Exactly.
I learned, one, that I could make an entire iOS app during one public speaker.
Yeah.
I got to dabble in any libraries that I wanted to do. What was hard about this was, like, if you closed the app, you still needed to keep, what was hard about it, you needed to keep counting, like, the time. So then you learn how the timer works in iOS, and you notice that the timer actually stops when you close the app. You say, why does that happen? And then you find out iOS automatically kills all applications 5 seconds after you click the home button. And even something stupid and simple like that teaches you a lot about how the system works. And it becomes this first step to say, okay, well now let's get a table of data. And then after a table of data, you say, let's turn it into a Pinterest-like grid where everything's a different size.
Yep.
So it should all dynamically size to the size of the content rather than just be like a boring row, right? Everything's a step. If you're trying to make, everybody tries to make Instagram as their first app, which actually isn't a bad thing to do. Honestly, I can't think of, like,
just do something different. It sounds
the health app like tracks how you bike. If you're going to try to use the accelerometer to figure out how someone's biking as your first app, and you have no idea of how the system works, like, maybe that's a little aggressive. But making something stupid like a tally app is, like, you don't need to release it in the store. Just throw it on GitHub, open source it. The people that are like, oh, this guy made a tally app, that's not what this community is about. Those people don't really exist.
It sounds like build something, then level up. I mean, you just learn from there, and then that's how you get to be strong with that language. I met a guy, Kawasaki, once, and he said, like, when you're presenting to people, it shouldn't be about, like, your presentation. It should be about your traction. Like, what have you done? Like, and so, and therefore, it's an easier story to tell. It's, like, more engaging. It's more fun. Like, we're just geeking out. So I think there's a lot of value in what you're saying in that regard. Any other recommendations for students from what you've done in the past, or?
There are so many opportunities that college provides to make those incremental steps and to just go out and build something. I think if you graduate and you haven't gone to a hackathon, it's a huge, huge mistake. Definitely go to hackathons. You're going to meet awesome people there. I got interviews just for attending the hackathon. I didn't make anything. I just played around and talked to people, but I think it was Apple was to, like, wow, we saw you at the hackathon. Why don't you talk to us for an interview? Because how many software engineers are in each graduating class at Ohio State? Is it 500 or something? I think there are 1,000 CSE students. How many of those are going to hackathons? It's already a massive filter. 1,000 aren't going to a hackathon.
Yeah, true.
Just going. And then as you make these incremental steps, or maybe you have a brilliant idea, you can win the hackathon, and then that really puts you at this next level.
Yep. No, absolutely. And then it sets you up for success moving forward and padding your resume, just knocking something out during that weekend and putting it up online.
Yeah.
If you find you, and then you could tell that story when you meet with them. You have a talking point to talk about.
It
In
puts
your
that project on your resume without you having to do it all on your own.
Yeah, no, totally. In your opinion, what
Speaking of
do
the, I'm sorry,
Facebook?
but
Yeah, go ahead.
going with the all on your own. Academia seems to focus a lot more on independence than the industry does. But I am never doing anything completely by myself in the real world, and I would maybe say it's better to work with other people and learn from these other people than to focus on sitting in your dorm room or your apartment and just working on something on your own. Learn how to communicate with other people on something technical. Learn how to use version control and manage. The guy to my left just really messed something up, and now we have to talk about it and get it all pushed into the stable version of something. These are all the real world things that happen every single day that aren't going to happen in a class project.
I like that. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. In your opinion, what does Facebook look for in engineers? Just your personal opinion, high level.
I mean, obviously they look for good engineers, but there's an entire spectrum of engineers. I would say I'm more product focused. I work really closely with our designer and the PM. I'm a big events goer. I love music. I actually sought out to work on the events team because of that. So in a way, I am building the app for me, which makes me passionate about the product itself. But an entire team of those people means your infrastructure sucks. So you do need to have a balance of these people like infrastructure, these people like security, these people work really closely to the product. And Facebook's mature enough that they understand that they need to hire a balance, and that's why people have titles and different focuses and everything. So I think it's hard to say what kind of engineer they look for, but be passionate about the part that you like, on the part of engineering that you like. I switched back and forth before I landed at this side.
When you say back and forth, what do you mean?
There's infrastructure is cool. I mean, really knowing how the iPhone works and how to get absolute performance out of it. Before I started at Facebook, I had no idea that the traditional way to round corners is a huge performance hit. And the normal product engineers that are really just consuming components probably aren't digging into that and realizing it. But you have this infrastructure team that they scroll and they notice there's a performance hit, and then they dig apart everything in that view and figure out like what is causing this performance hit. Yeah. And that's the only reason you can scroll through Facebook with all of their different story types at 60 frames a second.
Nice. No, interesting. Thank you for that. I like short interviews, and that's how we roll over here. So I'm just gonna end things off, and I thank you for your time. But in ending, what are some of your computer science mantras that you live by?
I think one of the biggest ones are if you're looking at code that's 6 months old, you should think it's pretty bad. You need to learn enough every 6 months to think your old stuff is bad. That's the big one. And state management sucks, but that one's pretty unavoidable right now.
That's kind of cool because it kind of makes us valuable every 6 months in theory. What makes just this idea that it's ever changing. Legacy code. It's like forget that. It's like how are we improving every 6 months? Is another way of looking at it as well.
As soon as something hits the master branch, it's legacy, right?
Yeah, no, totally right. Anything else?
That's the biggest one, especially with this whole idea of code quality.
Yeah.
It's enforced. Like you can have quality code, but you're still going to think it's bad in 6 months.
It can always be better is probably the question we should always be asking ourselves. How can we make it better? What are some ways of making it better and testing it in that regard? Well, Matt, I want to thank you for your time. You have a great day, and we'll talk soon, my man.
All right. Take care. Have a good one, man.